The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
A very scary experience.
You know, God is a solution. God, the 12 step.
I like where he's going here.
Helps the community grow, helps us grow.
Monty has done a phenomenal job.
Lack of open-mindedness.
And you're talking about taking people through a spiritual process and getting them into recovery.
Thanks, Monty, and thanks for all your support.
We need spirituality to make this thing work long term.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
And now, broadcasting on location somewhere in the vast expanse of the Pacific Northwest, it's the over-opinionated 12-stepologist, the Monty'man.
That's right. Yes, indeedy. That's right. So welcome aboard and welcome to Take 12 Recovery Radio at take12radio.com on your internet dial. Listen, there is a few ways to listen to this show. If you're on your PC, go to take12radio.com. You can type in the number 12 or the word 12, take you to the same location, and click on Listen Online. Now, if you're listening to the show on your PC, you've already done that. For those of you who prefer listening with your mobile devices, iPads, etc., you can also go to follow us on Podomatic when you go to take12radio.com and sign up for Podomatic. If you're Facebook friendly, it's really easy to do. It'll just say sign up with your Facebook account. They will never spam you or bother you. I should say we will never do that. What you'll get is an update every time our show updates on your smart device or on your computer. Become a Podomatic member and you can comment on the shows. You can save the shows on a playlist. You can, you can like our shows and follow our shows, and we really ask you to do that. Every time you listen to a show on Podomatic, please click on follow or like. It helps with our demographics, and that's vitally important. You can also click on View Online, and that'll take you to our YouTube version. Now, that's basically just an audio version with our logo, but some of you prefer YouTube. That's all you listen to, and so we're there as well. We're also on iTunes, and we have an app for iOS and Android as well that you can download from our website. So that's how you can listen to the shows. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. There you do have to use the number 12, Take12Radio. And we want to hear from you. Listen, we have a controversial show coming up on this Monday. The title of the show is Recovered or Recovering. And this isn't anything new. This battle has been going on since the dawn of the first 12-step meeting. Are you in recovery for the rest of your life, or have you recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body? Or is it just a matter of semantics? Is there danger in the way we term ourselves when it comes to people that are new to the whole recovery deal? Or is it just no big deal? We're going to be talking about that next week with Tony and Bruce as our co-hosts, Recovered or Recovering. Some of you have sent us some amazing email on the topic last Monday, which was on closed meetings. What's a closed meeting? Are they important? Are we perhaps protesting too much about the issue of closed meetings versus open meetings? And we want to thank you for those emails as well. Some of you don't like me very well right now, and I love it. I love it when you disagree with me. I had a professor in Bible college who used to say, you can disagree with me, just make sure you prove that you're right. There you go. And I'm not going to require that, but I don't care if you agree with me or disagree with me. I want to hear from you. Take12radio@comcast.net. All right. So addictive illness, a medical issue with a spiritual solution. We firmly believe that here at Take 12 Recovery Radio. We're very old school in the sense of the mothership, Alcoholics Anonymous. We really believe in a lot of the writings in the original manuscripts of Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't claim membership there or represent them, but we're really old school about that. Most of you know that by now. And one of the issues that it has been an issue for a very long time is this thing a moral issue? Is addiction a moral issue, or is it a disease? And it's really interesting to me that the people that combat that argument are usually people from the faith community versus the 12-step, secular 12-step community. And what I'm finding is in most cases, it's a matter of semantics. And so what I want you to understand is I truly believe that it doesn't matter how much you love God, how strong your faith is, you could definitely fall into addictive illness. I did for years. I was a pastor and an associate pastor and a youth minister, and I couldn't stop drinking. It didn't matter how much I loved God. It was a big dilemma. So, just because you happen to be a member in good standing, so to speak, of a particular faith doesn't mean that you're exempt from being touched by addiction. Likewise, you could be raised in a pretty functional family and be touched by addiction. Is this a choice you made? Was it made for you through genetics? Only you can answer that. But today on the show, my guest is Stephen R. And Stephen, I asked him to join me on the show to talk a little bit about his background. He is a born-again Christian. He is a man who has faith in Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. And many of you out there don't adhere to that. That's fine. You still tune into the show, and we're very grateful that you do. But I want you to hear Stephen's story. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Monty. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, Stephen, you currently work as an intern at a faith-based recovery center.
That's right.
Right? And you've been there how long now?
I have been an intern there for 3 months now.
3 months.
Yeah.
And prior to that, you had gone through the year program?
I did, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're a handsome-looking young man.
Oh,
you look healthy. You look vibrant.
Thank you.
But that probably wasn't always the case.
No, definitely not.
So,
No.
so tell us a little bit about your family history before we get into what went sideways.
All right. Well, in my mind, I think I grew up in a good home. I grew up with 2 loving parents. Was one of 8 kids, raised in outside of Brownsville, Oregon. We were all homeschooled. We all got along, and it was a pretty good upbringing for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, later on, I could see there was some dysfunction there, but as a kid, I didn't have any major issues or anything like that.
Yeah. So brothers and sisters?
Yeah. There was. I had 3 brothers and 4 sisters.
Was there a history of addictive illness or alcoholism in your lineage, in your family tree?
Both of my grandparents, so my mom's dad and my dad's dad, were both alcoholics.
Okay.
But my parents tried to nip that in the bud, and I honestly never saw them as a kid growing up with a beer or a glass of wine or anything. So they were strict, no smoking, no drinking, and they had that standard for us too. Like we were never allowed to even, it was like one of those things where we couldn't even talk about it.
Right.
Right. It was just so taboo that,
It just was like, we had that with the D word in our family, the divorce word.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even an issue.
Yeah.
It's not even an issue. There's no reason to talk about it as far as how it applies to us.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Same thing with like sex and all that. And
right.
It was just that stuff was never mentioned. It wasn't talked about, because my mom thought like if it was out of sight, it was out of mind, you just.
Yeah. So maybe that was good. Maybe that wasn't not so good. I don't know, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure how much it contributes to it. I think that personally, looking back, I would have liked a little bit more exposure while I was in that safe environment. Because what kind of happened is I got out in the real world and I didn't have that safety net to fall back into. It was kind of like I was making mistakes and at that point I was on my own, so I had to find a way to deal with it.
So do you think that you may have avoided some of the pitfalls if you knew the dangers of substance abuse earlier on, or do you think it would have made a difference?
It's really hard to say.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to say. Because in all honesty, out of 8 kids, I was the only one that really chose to go down that path. And
black sheep.
Yeah. Oh,
the
yeah.
Black sheep.
That,
so what did mom and dad and siblings think of that when you started going sideways?
Well, I did a really good job of keeping it hidden.
Yeah?
And
for a long time?
For quite a long time, yeah. I would say things started going south for me when I was 17 and I moved out of my parents' house. So it was right the summer before I turned 18, and I had never kissed a girl, had never drank a sip of alcohol, never smoked, never done anything, and that kind of all happened in one summer. Got a girlfriend, started hanging out with people, friends from work, and went to a party and drank, and I was like, man, this is actually pretty fun. What are they talking about? And so I kind of wanted to see what that road looked like a little bit. I felt like I was missing out. I was missing out on some fun.
Yeah.
And I started going to LBCC when I was 15 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're a smart guy.
Yeah, I had my associates when I was 18. I graduated from LBCC. I got my high school diploma and my associates. And
word.
Yeah, and I was enrolled in Oregon State as a junior when I was just turning 19 years old, and things were looking pretty good.
Yeah.
But that is when I started experimenting with smoking weed, drinking, and prescription pills and that sort of thing, and it was a pretty quick downward spiral.
And you're how old now?
I'm 26.
Okay. All right. So you really didn't have an educated viewpoint of the dangers of mind-altering substances. No. And your only exposure to them was people in your life that hadn't gotten bit in the rear by them yet. It was still working for them. In other words, they're still having a good time. They're young, and that kind of thing. And you just kind of, did you feel like you were older than most kids when you had your first kiss?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were older than most kids today anyway when you had your first beer.
Oh yeah.
Right. Did you feel kind of, before those two particular things happened for the first time, had you been thinking, man, my friends are kind of passing me by?
Yeah, for sure.
They got girlfriends and they're having a beer now and then. And
yeah, and I had a lot of Christian friends.
Yeah.
And in that circle of friends, it was normal. But in my other circle of friends from work and from school, I definitely was not normal, and in their eyes. And I have this ability to connect with people, and I can kind of just fit in wherever I go. And so
a great chameleon.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was definitely a gift and a curse. And I found that my moral compass was really inconvenient. And I took a look at that and threw it out the window, and I wanted to go experience what the world had to offer.
Right. So how did that set with your spiritual beliefs?
Oh yeah, at that point I kind of really.
Did you have to kind of turn them down?
I turned them. I turned them off.
You turned them off.
I turned them off. Yeah, because it was for a while the conviction was there. I believe that the Holy Spirit was still convicting me, trying to point me back to like, hey, don't do this. This is going to get you hurt. And I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to go out and have fun, and I wanted to do all this stuff that I saw looked like a good time. And so it was just easier to turn it off. And when things got really bad, then I would say a prayer.
You'd turn it back on.
Yeah, and that'd last for a couple of days. It would last for me a little while longer early on.
Sure.
As the years went by, it was maybe an hour in the morning after I woke up after something really bad happened or something.
Right. So what was the substance that you took the very first time?
The very first substance I took was alcohol.
It was alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did it do for you?
It was at a party and after work, and I mean, it just made me feel kind of carefree, happy, loose, and it was just kind of a feel good kind of thing. I mean, I had 4.5 beers and I was hammered,
Right. So you're stumbling down.
Yeah, friends making fun of me, and I took a pull of vodka for the first time that night and didn't know that it would burn, and I spit it all over the place,
Oh, my word.
Oh, yeah. And so, it was a good experience, I guess, if you will.
Right.
And it left a good taste in my mouth. I knew that this was something I was going to do again.
So you knew you were going to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember the next day actually talking to a friend's dad, and who I was really close with, and I told him about it, and he was kind of struggling with his own bout with alcoholism, and so I felt like I could approach him, and I told him, hey, I did this for the first time last night, and he would always tell me, that's fine, you can do that, just don't drink and drive.
Interesting.
Yeah, just don't drink and drive.
So you can become intoxicated to where you can't think clearly, but don't drink and drive while you can't think clearly.
Right. I was like, that seems easy enough. Yeah, okay, I won't get behind the wheel.
That makes sense. Did you drink and drive?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot, and eventually that got me my first DUI when I was 21, and at that
when you're 21 is when you're supposed to have your first drink.
Yeah. I actually
that's
what they say, right? At that point, because I was working a lot. I was drinking at work.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it grew from drinking after to drinking during.
Yeah.
Were you sneaking it?
Yeah, I was stealing, and so that was.
Did you work in retail or something, or what?
Yeah, I worked at golf courses. I've worked at convenience stores, and just places where it was
readily available.
Right, and you're creative. There's ways to sneak it out, and and so as an underage, as a minor, that was the only way to really get it. For me, I didn't really want to ask people to get it for me. I didn't have people like a lot of people do to get it for me. But I mean, it kind of along with the drinking around the same time came the smoking weed. And I remember smoking weed for the first time, and similar experience. It was pretty strong. And I was on the golf course, and we went and played, and I felt like every step I took, like the whole world was shaking, and I tried to take a swing, and everything was moving in frames, and we're all laughing, and
So were you working and imbibing in marijuana at the same time too, or just booze when you were working?
Oh no, it was both.
It was both. Didn't you find it difficult? I always did. I couldn't function properly. I could under alcohol, I thought.
Yeah.
But with the pot, I was like all over the place.
Well, the thing with the pot was that I was outside working, so I could be by myself.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anytime I was around other people, though, that was a no-go.
Yeah,
That was like everybody knows.
Do a little coke to take the edge off, right?
Yeah, that didn't come till later, but
okay. So, but it came.
Yeah, it did. So as I started selling weed when I was 19, I started getting ounces at a time and selling to friends just to kind of pay for the weed. And occasionally my dealer would have, something else.
Yeah.
And occasionally it was ecstasy or mushrooms. But one time he had this pill called Opana, and it was 40 milligrams. I think it's something like, it's twice as strong as OxyContin.
Okay.
Anyway, $40 for a 40 milligram pill.
$40 for one pill.
Yep.
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty steep, but I I was kind of at that phase where
Sure.
I wanted to try everything. I didn't really care except for meth and heroin. I'll never use meth and heroin. That was my mindset. But I'll try other things. And so I broke up the little pill into a line and did about an eighth of it, snorted it, and 15 minutes later, I'm sweating. I'm feeling nauseous.
It wasn't a good experience.
Oh no, man! It was too much initially,
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is a waste. Like I spent $40 on this. And,
Yeah.
Of course, though, I ended up over the next day or two doing the whole thing, and like, well, that one, I'm not going to do that again.
Well, I bought it. I might as well finish it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm not gonna
even if it makes
throw
me
away.
sick.
It altered my mind, and so I used it, and it was like a week later. I get a text saying, "Hey, I got more of those. Do you want them?" And for some reason, I said, "Yeah, I'll get another one." And that second one, the second one was a different story. It was
interesting.
Yeah, it hit me totally different. It was the euphoric opiate high that
right.
As opiate addicts that we all love.
The euphoria. You bet.
Yeah.
So did that graduate into even deeper?
Yeah.
waters?
So the thing with my first DUI, I had to stop smoking pot because it stayed in my system too long, and I was doing classes. And opiates, I did a lot of research on what stays in your system and what doesn't. Opiates are out in 3 to 5 days, and so in my mind, I was like, okay, I can still do pills, and it'll be fine. And so I just started getting whatever I could get my hands on: hydrocodone, oxycodone, the Opanas, OxyContin.
Yeah.
I'm still working this entire time. I'm still at this point, I'm still going to school at Oregon State, even though my grades went from like a 3.85 at LBCC to like a 2.7 at Oregon State. Yeah, my grades.
It's quite a jump.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was not focused on school at all by any means. So there was one day where I called my dealer and asked him if he had anything, and he said, "No, I don't have any oxy, but I got this other stuff, and you probably don't want it." And I was like, "Well, what is it?" And he's like, "Well, it's the natural form of it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that doesn't sound too bad."
Touché.
Yeah, the natural form, and it's actually stronger, and you get a little more bang for your buck. I was like, "Oh, sweet, definitely, I'll try that." And he's like, "Well, it's H," and I'm like, "H," and he's like, "Yeah, heroin," and I was like, "Oh," it's like, "Well, I'll give it a shot," And so I got a couple points and smoked it with a buddy, and and it was nothing too extreme, and I was like, "Oh, it's just just like a pill."
Right.
It's like, what's the big deal? I thought this was like a real big bad drug, and it was, it kind of at that point, now I realized that anything was game. And I was always afraid of needles, never told myself, well, I'll smoke a little bit here and there, but I'll never use a needle. And to this day, I don't have any tattoos, because I don't like needles. But eventually, that too.
That did happen.
Yeah, that did happen. Yeah. And the way that happened was I was waiting in the drug dealer's house for a guy to come by. I mean, it was one of these places that was just miserable. There's 7 people sitting on couches and old chairs, and we're all dope sick, and and we're all waiting for this guy who's hours late. And
of course,
and so one of the guys waiting was actually a paramedic. And
that's comforting.
Yeah, and whole bag of fresh rigs, and he asked me, well, do you want to? I can do a shot for you if you want, and and I had been drinking a little bit, and I was feeling a little extra
brave.
Yeah. So I was like, let's do it, and so he went through the process. and did it, and it was easy, painless, and man, it was a different drug at that point.
So was it the promised land?
Yeah. It was. I was at that point. I was like, man, I've been wasting my money this whole
all
time.
This other garbage.
Smoking it was a waste of money at that point. At that point, I never smoked it again. I just shot it up, and I learned pretty quickly how to do it. And I did not look like a junkie. I was clean cut. I was at this point I had dropped out of school, but I was still working. I worked through my entire addiction. Amazingly, never got fired from a job. But
you had to pay for your habit,
right? Yeah, I had to pay for my habit, and so that was my first real bout with heroin. That was really probably only 8 months. I was using it every day.
Using it every day for 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's enough to put you through
to make you chemically dependent. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break.
Okay,
now that everybody's been jonesing, but it's important to share the mess because for people to be able to identify. And we've been talking with my guest Stephen R. You don't have to come from a dysfunctional home to become very dysfunctional. And my home was pretty much the same way. I mean, things were going good. My parents were doing the best they could. We really didn't have issues that were anything to write home about. And I got myself into trouble too. So you don't always have to have a backstory of, Uncle Joe molested me and the house caught on fire and Dad left Mom and we never heard of him again. Those things happen, but those are not necessarily prerequisites to active addiction and addictive illness. So we're going to take a break real quick. Then we're going to come back and we're going to have a little fun with some trivia so everybody can kind of take a breather because I want to continue this story with you and find out what happened to get you turned in a different direction. Okay? All right, so folks, don't go away. More with my guest, Stephen R., when we return.
Free by the Sea is a drug and alcohol recovery center located in beautiful Ocean Park, Washington. This facility is amazingly gorgeous, but what's even more amazing is the integrity of the staff and the treatment provided for those wishing to recover from narcotic and alcohol addiction. The folks at Free by the Sea have a passion for presenting the solution to addiction for you or your loved one. To speak with an admission specialist, visit freebythesea.com or call toll-free 800-272-9199. This place is simply amazing.
All right, welcome back to the show. I think it's time to have a little fun here. Let's see what we got coming up. What do we have? Aha!
And now, it's the quiz of the week.
That's right, everybody. It's time for Take 12 Radio's Quiz of the Week.
Hi, Cecil.
Sponsored by that recovery magazine, the 12-Step Gazette. Visit their website at 12stepgazette.com. Now, here's the Monty'man.
That's right. It's everybody's favorite radio game show, the Quiz of the Week, Take 12 Trivia. Take a little break from Stephen's story here, and that was Cecil. You can hear Cecil every week on our show at the beginning of every week on The Great Reality. All right, so I've got a little trivia for you, buddy.
All right.
This is totally useless trivia.
Perfect.
Totally useless. If you get it wrong, you hear this. If you get it right, one of those.
All right.
Get.
I love trivia.
All right. The average person falls asleep in, here are your choices, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, or 16 minutes.
16 minutes.
Well, sorry. The average person actually falls asleep in 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
7 minutes. Do you fall asleep fast?
I do now.
You do? Yes, do tell. What was sleep? Okay, number 2. Every time you lick a stamp, you consume 1/10 of a calorie, 1/2 of a calorie, or no calories?
1/10 of a calorie?
1/10. You got it right. It is 1/10 of a calorie.
All right.
Okay, this is the third one, then you get a bonus, all right? And if you get these all right, except for one because you missed one. So if you get all three, the next three right, you get them all right.
Oh, nice.
That's all you get. All right. In 1912, a law passed in Nebraska where drivers in the country at night were required to stop every 150 yards, send up a skyrocket, wait 8 minutes for the road to clear before proceeding cautiously, all the while blowing their horn and shooting off flares. Is that true or false?
That has got to be false.
Sorry, but it is actually true. Yes, in 1912, a law was passed in Nebraska where drivers were required to do that.
I'm kind of curious what the circumstance was for that. It seems a little excessive.
A little excessive, yes. Yeah. There must have been something going on. Yeah, but there's all these, it's just weird laws out there.
Yeah.
You can't walk a giraffe down Main Street at 2 a.m. in the morning in Mississippi. I mean, stuff weird.
That's
things.
preposterous.
All right, here is your bonus. Count the number of cricket chirps in a 15-second period, add 37 to the total, and your result will be very close to the actual what? Here are your choices. This is if you count cricket chirps in a 15-second period and add the number 37. Will this tell you the minutes before a tornado will appear on the horizon in Kansas? Will it give you the outdoor Fahrenheit temperature? Or is this just stupid and doesn't mean anything?
I feel like C would be the...
That it's stupid and doesn't mean anything?
Yeah.
Sorry, Betty. It will actually give you approximately the correct outdoor Fahrenheit temperature.
Oh, that was my second choice.
Yeah. Well, So that's it for Take 12 Trivia with my guest, Stephen R. Trying to stump the guest. Yes, indeedy. All right, we'll be back more with Stephen's story. Coming out of a functional home into dysfunction. Addiction can touch anyone. We'll be back right after this message.
Serene Scene Magazine is published for individuals who are seeking knowledge, support, and hope. Addiction is a systemic problem, and the content of Serene Scene reflects the complexity of putting addiction into remission, with special attention given to the loved ones of the addict. And now, here's Andrew Martin, Editor-in-Chief for Serene Scene.
I'm Andrew Martin, creator of Serene Scene Magazine. The whole purpose of Serene Scene Magazine is to help people help themselves to a long-term quality lifestyle of recovery. Please have a look at some of the technological features that it has, the audio files, and the video files that are incorporated into the publication as well. I hope you have fun with it, and I hope there's something there for you.
Serene Scene, a magazine for long-term healthy lifestyles of recovery. Visit www.serenescenemagazine.com and subscribe today.
He's insane. He's a control freak. So, what's your point? It's the Monty'man at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial.
Well, welcome back to the show. Stephen R. is my guest. A man who really did come out of a very functional home, but fell into dysfunction in the area of addictive illness. And where we left off was, Stephen, you had been introduced to intravenous drug use.
Mm-hmm.
Did that graduate into other drugs using that same method?
Yeah, it did. And it got to the point where I was addicted to the needle, really. And
to the whole process, right?
Yeah, it was a ritual. And
yeah, you bet.
So meth was never really my thing, although I did dabble with that as well. I just couldn't be as functional on meth. After staying up for a few days, you kind of start losing your marbles a little bit.
Right,
and
right. Do tell.
I've worked with people. I mean, most of my jobs were either in hospitality or dealing with people. So when I was using IV
thank you
drugs,
for sharing that while you were in your active addiction, you were very hospitable.
Yeah.
And you like to work with folks.
It went better at sometimes than others, trying to serve tables and bartend when you're on a 5-day run does not work very well.
Too good.
No.
So did you ever go through those times where I'm not even going to use this drug unless I can use this delivery method of intravenously doing it?
Yeah, and which kind of got me in trouble with using old needles and
yes,
even sharing needles. But
and you didn't get sick.
I never got hepatitis or anything like that.
Yeah, see, that was my story. Because I would have a whole bag of brand new needles down on the car, and I'd go upstairs some apartment or something like that and score. And you think I'd go back down and get a new one? No, I don't have time for that.
No,
and I never got sick.
Yeah,
I mean, I got dope sick, but God protected you and I, man.
Yeah,
because by all intents and purposes, we should at the very least have Hep C or something.
Yeah.
That's scary stuff, brother.
Yeah, it is.
You dodged a big bullet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely did. So this had really, at some point, had to really turn around and turn on you, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
So it kind of came to a head when I was staying at a place, actually with other Christians. It was a place that was cheap rent, and it was the only place I could find at the time. And I came home from shopping, and I had done a shot of heroin before I went. And by the time I got home, I was so high I passed out getting out of my car.
Ooh.
And just kind of with the door open, half in, half out, and just taking a little siesta. And one of my roommates apparently had came by and saw me and took a picture and sent it to my dad.
Oh.
And so my dad came by the next day and said that he was taking the car away because it was given to me as a gift.
Had you run into any problems with your parents finding out about this stuff prior to that?
Not with heroin. I already had my one DUI.
Okay.
So they knew that.
They knew about that.
They just thought that I was drinking and driving.
Right.
And so at this point, I had been using for like 8 months, and so I told them the whole thing. I, for whatever reason, felt like just spilling my guts. And told them, this had been going on, and so a couple months later, I went to a holistic rehab, and which was like a 2-week IV drip amino acid therapy, kind of new hippie cutting edge stuff.
Right,
and,
right.
And so that actually, I moved back into my mom's house.
So you detoxed.
Yeah. So
that's basically all you did was detox.
Yeah,
right?
basically. I mean, it kind of resets your brain chemistry and
sure,
that sort of thing. And so at that point, I moved back with my mom, and I did good for a little while. This is actually the longest clean time I had from when I first took that first sip of alcohol.
Right.
And I was clean from heroin and alcohol for almost 5 months, but I was smoking pot every day. I still had to have that that brain altering substance.
You wanted to change the way you felt, because feeling the way you would sober wasn't sufficient.
No, it wasn't, and for whatever reason,
and
so I thought I was doing really good, and it was. I remember it pretty clearly. It was the NBA playoffs, and the Spurs were playing the Cavaliers or the Miami Heat, and it was just LeBron. Spurs were playing LeBron. That's what I remembered, and I went out with some friends after work and drank for the first time, and stayed the night in town, and was like, okay, that wasn't a big deal. It was mellow, and didn't drive. I was responsible, and that happened the next day, and then the next day. And before I knew it, it was like I thought my tolerance was right back where it was. And
right.
It wasn't even 3 weeks after I'd started drinking again that I got my second DUI. And
now, how did you do that if you didn't have your car?
Well, at this point, I got my car back.
Your car back.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I got my car back after I did the rehab.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So you got rewarded by getting your car back.
Right.
Because you were a good boy for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We say tongue in cheek.
Yeah. And so, so that was what really, really started a downward spiral. It was actually 2 weeks before my sister's wedding, my little sister's wedding.
Ouch.
And I mean, I was a mess. I was. It seemed like my world was crashing down because I went through a diversion the first time, and so the second one meant that first DUI was going back on my record. I had all this other stuff that I had to deal with now.
Right.
And I just couldn't. I didn't want to face my family and letting them know that I let them down again, and that that I had failed basically.
Yeah.
And that, that dealing with that shame and that guilt. I mean, I just started drinking more than ever. Beforehand, I had deleted all my contacts for heroin out of my phone. I had blocked their numbers so I couldn't get, so they couldn't text me or anything like that. And needless to say, when you're not looking for it, it tends to find you.
You bet it does.
And so
it'll walk around the corner, man.
Yep. And I was working, and a guy came up, and I was like, "Hey, like I know you. You still got that stuff." And so that I got that connection again, and started intravenously using heroin, and I was drinking. I mean, my drinking started going through the roof. I was drinking a fifth a day, like hands down. Yeah, with everything else that was going on, it was mandatory, a fifth a day, and I wake up feeling fine. It was like my body, my tolerance was at that level where I could drink beer and drink wine, and
so you weren't getting hangovers or
nope. At that point,
I hate you.
No, so I felt like I could handle it, and but of course, you're drinking that high amount of alcohol. It's still in your system. Your body's still processing that.
You bet.
And you do a just even a point of dope with all that alcohol. You're playing a dangerous game.
Yeah.
And so that led me to
because both are depressants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so that led me to a couple overdoses and
visits to the ER.
No, on the way to the ER, actually. Both, a couple of them were by myself, where I had locked myself in my bathroom at the place living with those Christian guys, actually.
Yeah.
And there was one bathroom, and locked myself in there and did a shot. And I woke up on the ground, like rigs laying everywhere, and kind of thinking that I just nodded off for a couple seconds.
Right.
And got up and walked out, and they're like, "Hey, are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine," and rather than being super high, but they said, "Hey, we've been banging on the door. You'd been in there for over 3 hours." And,
oh my goodness!
It's like, oh wow, that's crazy.
Gee.
And then a couple other times I was at a drug dealer's house, and they said I went blue and tongue hanging out, and they were hitting me, throwing water on me, and I was on my way to the hospital in the car. They were taking me up there to drop me off, and I came to, thankfully. And of course, I was looted. All my drugs were gone. All my money was gone.
Sure, sure.
I was still
great
alive.
friends.
Yeah. I was back the next day, though. Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We ripped you off. Yeah, it's cool. So what got you to turn around, man? I mean, besides some of these horrible things, or you're getting shook a little bit,
Yeah.
right? God's
Oh, yeah.
kind of shaking your tree a little bit.
Yeah.
Was the treatment recovery center that you're currently working as an intern, was that your first introduction to any kind of environment like that?
That was, yeah. And I decided to go down there. Before I just made that decision, though, I tried to do something else. I tried to change my environment. So I, shortly after that second DUI, I decided to move to where my dad was living in Florida. I was like, I just need to get out of Oregon. Maybe this will do me some good. And it didn't.
Not Florida, brother.
No.
I have some colleagues that have the Recovery 101 show, and they're always going, and such happened. Guess where? And they'll all say in unison, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's rampant anywhere you go, really, right?
Yeah. But down there, I mean, things really just escalated and got worse and worse. And I was going through, at that point, down there, I was going through alcohol withdrawals, which were, I mean, I'd almost say worse than heroin withdrawals. I mean, I was laying in bed having a seizure, just seeing lights flashing and bleeding out my mouth, bleeding out my backside. It was excruciating, and I had enough. I was killing myself.
Dude, you're at death's door if you're bleeding out both ends from alcohol problems.
Yeah. And so I was willing to try anything. I just couldn't do it anymore, So I had heard of this program, and I called my mom and was like, I need to come back to Oregon. I need to do something desperate because I'm going to die if I don't.
Right.
And so I found out during this process of getting in here that it was a year long, and it's like, oh boy, I was thinking maybe 3 months or
a year.
Yeah. So, but it ended up being the best decision I ever made, and the only thing, I mean, I knew it was Christ-based, and that was my roots. It had been a long time since I had any sort of relationship with God, but I was willing to try anything.
So during this time, from when you accepted Christ into your life the first time, years before you entered this center, true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're using, at any point, did you feel a tug in your heart saying, like from God saying, son, you got to turn around? I mean, did it ever cross your mind at all? You said you turned down the volume, you turned it off.
Yeah.
Did it ever get turned back up involuntarily? Like you felt like God was talking to you?
Yeah, there were little incidences here and there.
Yeah.
I would say my dad, he was going through his own spiritual transformation with the divorce of my parents.
Right.
There was a lot of questions he needed to answer, and there was a huge change in his life, and I could see that, but I didn't really want to believe it. I wanted to be in charge of my own life, and
sure.
But he was really loving in his approach. Whatever it was, he come and pick me up for work when I was too hungover to ride my bike. And that's another thing. I was riding my bike in Florida 24 miles a day just to get to work.
Gee
And not a good place to be on a bicycle.
No.
And he knew what was going on, and he would just reassuringly, lovingly tell me, Jesus wants to take this away from you. He wants to take this burden away from you. You just got to let him.
Yeah.
And it was that really that loving, gentle response that cut me, and it does to this day. And I'm so thankful that my dad took that approach instead of trying to ram religion down my throat.
You got a great dad.
Yeah.
So you enter this center, and not only do you find out it's a year, you probably came up against some things that weren't real comfortable. True?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing when you're trying to change years and years of bad habits.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the hardest part was trying to change who I was. And granted, I was so happy to be done with what I was doing, though, that it was worth it. And it made that process a lot easier, because deep down I was so done. I was so done living in bondage and living in captivity and just being, I mean, I say it now, I'm being punked out by Satan, you know, and I was okay to do the work,
jump through some of the hoops, even if they sounded silly. You were just so grateful to be in a safe place. And there's a big difference, right? Because you, as an intern now for the same facility, you watch guys come in fighting, right?
Yep.
Are they coming in for the courts? Are they coming in for mom and dad, or for the spouse or the girlfriend?
Yeah.
But deep down, they're fighting it all the way, and it makes it very difficult.
Extremely difficult. It's like I almost see the number one biggest factor in somebody getting well is, what is their motive, and are they ready to really be done living that way? And because you can see somebody's attitude when they're just like, I've had enough. I'm so done with that. I'll do whatever it takes to not not drink again, to not put a needle in my arm again, and then you see the other side where it's like, well, you know, I got to do this because, you know, the courts told me, or my family said they're going to disown me, so I'm going to give this a shot, and I'm going to try to do this. And I mean, it makes all the difference in the world.
Is it easy to spot folks that are guys that come in and you know, you kind of think they're not done?
Yeah, some cases it's more obvious than others. And other cases when you're like, man, I totally thought that guy was ready, you know. Needless to say, for whoever it is going through this, there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be times where it's going to be really hard, and you're going to want to just quit. And you're going to want to walk out those doors and go use. It's those moments, those hard moments that you just got to get through and fight through. And there are some times when somebody will come in and you almost know right away, this guy's not ready.
And it breaks your heart, because the next time you see him, maybe on a gurney.
You
know, and that's happened. I mean, you know, people will leave and not come back.
Right.
This may be the last house on the block for them. Right.
It's a hard position to be in at times.
Sure.
You want to do everything you can do to help them, but they have to want to help themselves too.
Now, there's a saying that treatment doesn't have to be voluntary to be effective, and we're referring to the initial introducing somebody to treatment. There's a thing called the Monty'man Act in Florida, where you don't have to be a relative to commit somebody to treatment. And you know, if you can prove, you know, relatively assuredly to the courts that this person is harming themselves, you know, this is a very short layman's explanation of the Monty'man Act, but you can participate in getting them into treatment, and sometimes they don't want to go. So it doesn't necessarily have to be voluntary, and then they wake up while they're there, you know. But at some point, whether it's after they're there a while or when they first come in, at some point there's got to be a willingness to change the direction of our thinking, right?
Yeah.
Because if that doesn't change, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
Do you ever did you ever deal with using dreams, or, you know, that kind of stuff, or have any fleeting thoughts? We know the thought isn't the sin, so to speak.
Right.
Since you've been in.
Oh yeah, definitely. Early on, it happened quite frequently.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those guys that I dream almost every single night. And early on, I mean, it seemed like every other night I was having using dreams.
Was that irritating?
Yeah, it was at times. And then at other times, it was kind of like I'd wake up and I'd see the top of my bunk. And I'd just be like, thank you, God, I'm here.
Right.
And And so it got old though, for sure.
Yeah.
But now being clean for 16 months almost now.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Incredible.
Yeah, it is. They're few and far between. And
and they do get less and less.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
I would say early on too, I found out what some of my triggers were, and work was a big one. When I started going to work, man, that draw to use was intense, because for my whole entire life, my experience using, that was how I rewarded myself after a day of work. It was like that.
And you were working off campus, right? In the beginning?
Yes, in the beginning. Going out and working,
right.
Putting in an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
And that draw to use after working an 8-hour day was so strong. It was like, I don't know why I was doing so good. Now all of a sudden I just want to leave and go to the corner store and pick up a couple Four Locos. I didn't care.
Sure.
And so I figured out that was how I'd conditioned myself. That's how I continually rewarded myself. And so my brain was like, okay, where's the good?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of an eye opener for me that I could retrain my brain,
right?
And that it was necessary to retrain my brain and to give myself some sort of reward when I did something like that wasn't using.
Yeah. So okay. So we've been talking about a medical problem with a spiritual solution.
Mm-hmm.
And whether a person is a drug abuser or actually a drug addict, because there is a difference, good things usually don't follow those kinds of behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Not normally.
Yeah.
And so we get ourselves into consequences that are really ugly and that kind of thing. And we lose the power in choice. People say, well, why don't you just stop?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at some point you can lose the power in being able to do that, because you become chemically dependent. And you'll step over your mother's grave to just feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're experiencing feeling normal, but in the truest sense of your true self, the one that God created you to be.
Yeah.
And and I know, and many of our listeners know, that for us, Christ was the one who did for us that which we could not do for ourselves.
Right.
And today you proclaim him. You're not ashamed of talking about him. And you recognize, who he is in your life, probably more than you ever had before, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And I was kind of blessed, because right before I went into this program, I stayed at my dad's pastor's house, and God just met me in a big way there. And we're to the point where I was just overcome with joy. And
wow.
It was so it was euphoric, I hate to use that word on this sense, but it was. And I never had felt that way without drugs before in my entire life. And I was giddy, I was excited, and I was like I felt so close, and I was actually scared. I was like, man, I hope this doesn't leave. I hope 2 months down the road, I'm still feeling this way right now.
Uh-huh.
And, but it was just the realization that, of God's love for me. That's the simplest way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And that he was really there, and he wanted to take my burdens for me. And
that's great.
That's
great. Well, we are out of time. What are your plans for the future?
Well, I want to go back and finish my schooling. I got like a year left. Yeah. So I want to get that under my belt, and I'm not entirely sure.
Sure. That's okay.
Yeah. I know that as long as God's in the focal point, whatever I'm doing is going to be good. So, it's nice not having any anxiety when I think about the future, just knowing that I'm safe in God's hands. So,
amen. Yeah. Thank you, brother, for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you.
Thank
I'm
you.
really proud of you.
Thank
I
you.
took a liking to you right off the bat when we first met. And I think a lot of it is because we share kind of the same thing. Our homes were okay. We're pretty okay. And we still fell into this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned our closing song speaks on an issue. It's kind of a comedic song. But you talked a little bit about how, you weren't doing heroin, right? You weren't doing this other stuff, but you were smoking pot, so you figured, okay, I'm not drinking, but I'm smoking pot, but at least I'm not drinking, So this is a song by Michael Purrington and the Messengers called High and Dry. Here we go.
I'm on the marijuana maintenance program. I haven't had to take a drink so far. Every time I'm tempted to go out and get drunk, I smoke a joint and stay home from the bars. High and dry, what a good boy am I. High and dry, yes I am a sober doper guy. High and dry, my chemicals in need. Fill my life with pharmaceutical serenity. First thing that I did was find a doctor to prescribe codeine to ease my pain. I told him I'm in recovery and he gave me some Valium to keep me sane. High and dry, what a good boy am I. High and dry, yes I am a sober doper guy. High and dry, my chemicals in me. Fill my life with pharmaceutical serenity. I snort cocaine all day to keep me working. It's 2 a.m. and I am shaking still. But I don't have to pass out on a half a case of brew. I'll just take a few sleeping pills. High and dry, what a good boy am I. High and dry, yes I am a sober doper guy. High and dry, my chemicals in me. Fill my life with pharmaceutical serenity. Fill my life with pharmaceutical serenity.
Special thank you to my guest, Stephen R. Until our next broadcast, we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.